Okay. Well, welcome everyone. I'm Lena Perepilova. I'm the founder of Women Investors Club and passionate financial educator, and also advocate for financial empowerment for women. Now, it's very, very important subject for me. I think our relationship with money affects us on many different levels. And for women, I think it's a very important part of our, let's say, stride for independence. No, I think finance and our freedom is very connected. Confidence, there is a big part of our confidence which is affected by our relationship with money. And so I'm trying to help one woman at a time, and sometimes groups of women at a time. So I offer programs which are very focused on growing your wealth, learning, investing, and doing something with your money. And I also come and talk to women groups in the companies, to companies also with men. I participate at conferences, and I do overall public speaking. It's I actually really like public speaking. It's very exciting. And let me wait. You let her.
I got her.
You got it. Okay. And since a couple of years, I personally got more and more interested in this topic of happiness. It was more of a personal discovery. And then I thought it would be actually very interested to find and discover the connection between happiness and money. Because as rightly Sylvia also said, there is, we tend to give lots of power to money in general, and we tend also to connect our happiness with money. And so I thought it would be very interesting to learn about the subject. And as a part of this search, I started organizing events on money and happiness. And this is the third event. We had first event in 2022 when we had a psychologist from the Netherlands who talked to us about money blocks and limiting beliefs. You can watch the recordings. Last year we had a dear friend of mine, Jenny, who is an emotional freedom tapping specialist. And she talked about techniques of how eliminate limited beliefs about money. And so this year, when I met Julia at an event in Madrid, I immediately connected, obviously, on the topic of money, and we discovered that we were both interested in money and happiness connection. And I've never met a money coach before. So I thought it would be very good to learn from Julia. And I invited her as a speaker for this year's event. So today, it will be Julia who will be talking to us. She prepared lots of exciting stuff. I will let also Julia introduce herself. I think she has some exercise for us. No, we'll do something about it. And for sure, we will leave a little bit of time also just to reflect and talk. Well, let's start.
Okay, awesome. First of all, I just want to say I am really excited to be talking to all of you. And just you know, if you see me looking off to the side, it's because I've got notes. They're just like certain topics that I want to make sure that I hit on. So it's not that I'm not focused on all of you beautiful people. I'm just making sure that I want to kind of say everything that I wanted to say. So really excited to be here. Met some of you previously, and those that I haven't, it's lovely to meet you. And I also want to like pause and congratulate on all of you for taking the time to invest in yourself by carving out the time for this, by joining this chat. Kind of like everybody's goals are different, but the important thing is that you took the time, you paused, and you invest in yourself. And time and money, right? Both are investments in self. So you could be doing a lot of other things, but you chose to use this time for yourself to grow, to kind of learn about this topic. So I really applaud you. I think that's really the first step in that journey. So just a little bit about me. The first half of my career, I was in corporate FP&A. And for those that don't know what that is, FP&A stands for forecasting, planning, and analysis. So essentially, I was helping organizations plan their revenue, understand their expenses, figure out how to tweak things in order to become more profitable. So I was kind of which is really kind of what I do now to like help women do now, understand their personal P&L, right? Understand the income component, understand the expenses component, and understand how to make it more profitable for you. I left my corporate job a couple of years ago because I realized that, my desire was really focused around like helping women grow their money, not just organizations. Yes, that's important. But, a lot of the stuff that's really important to me is the things that like Liana touched on, like the confidence around money, right? The independence around money, like. And also, Nana, was really interesting kind of what you talked about, like from a cultural background, bad manners, right? There's so many things that are associated with money that it just kind of like creates these like blockers for us and keeps us from like moving forward and from growing. So I was really excited to kind of create this, kind of new direction for myself. And then is anybody familiar with what money coaching is? Okay. All right. It's pretty new in the States too. So money coaching, it kind of, big picture, essentially it helps you see your patterns with money, your spending patterns, your holding patterns, your earning patterns, your saving patterns. And then once you have the awareness of kind of those patterns, it helps you then change your habits, and helps you create like a new also money management strategy that aligns with your life and aligns with your goals. Also, it helps you really understand your current mindset around money. So a lot of the stuff that Sylvia was saying, right, around kind of like your patterns and like all kind of psychological background, all of that stuff, it helps bring that to life. We definitely don't go as deep as therapy. What we do is really kind of like we focus on the awareness and then we focus on moving forward. So how do we now make changes? What kind of new habits do we need to create in order to create kind of like, hit your new goals and like achieve your new goals? So that's really like money coaching. And the difference between kind of money coaching and what like a financial advisor, for example, does is I kind of see it in like two parts and two different kind of steps in your financial journey. One is you kind of got to understand where you are before you get to where you want to go, right? It's kind of like Google Maps. Like you got to put in your initial location and then you got to put in like your future location. I'm probably going to use that example again later. But that's kind of like what money coaching is, right? Like helps you get a grasp on your habits, understand where like your mindset came from, like the cultural background, what kind of influences you've had and like how that's all been developed. And then intentionally, consciously create new ones. And that's, and then once you kind of have those new habits, then it becomes much easier to be able to save money, collect money in order to then invest and work with a financial advisor to grow your wealth. So it's kind of two different definitions, I guess, of growing your wealth, right? There's like the income generation and saving and being able to hold money. And then there's the actual working with the advisor to like put into the markets and to grow. So I'll pause there. Any questions? Okay. All right. So, very similar to kind of what Lena said, my desire is to help women grow confident with their money, comfortable with their money. And I really feel like this is kind of the path for that. So in terms of like, how do money and happiness connect? For me, if we just kind of like step back and kind of think about what is money, it's simply like a piece of paper, right? It's simply a tool that you use to exchange for goods and services. The thing is, as everybody kind of mentioned, the concept of money comes with so much emotional weight, so much expectations, things that you don't even really know that you have. Things like it's bad manners to talk about money. Like, it's good girls shouldn't work, or, there's all these kind of like chains. I like to use the term chains that kind of get put on us by society, and then we kind of put on ourselves as well, right? So we give money this like power over us. And I really believe that like the first step in creating the connection between money and happiness is believing that it is possible to be confident and comfortable with your money. It's possible, right? Because for some people, it's like, I don't even know how. It's a fog to me, and like I would just rather have my partner do it. But even just kind of like letting yourself believe it's possible creates kind of like an immediate lightness. And one of my clients in like our second session, she was like, once we just kind of first started talking, we really didn't even get super deep into it. She already was like, I already feel a light at the end of the tunnel, because she felt like there was a possibility for her to like manage her money better. So what I love about that example is that it shows like that what you think about money truly impacts your well-being, right? Which obviously impacts your happiness. So what I like to think about, I like to think about money as it is a tool to enhance your happiness. You get to decide how you use it. And I really believe that you can use monetary wealth to enhance like the experience of your life in whatever way you choose to do that, through helping yourself, through helping others. It's really kind of like unlimited. So I'd like to offer kind of some thoughts around money, very similar to what Liana was saying, right? Like saved money creates options, which creates more control over your own life. Save money creates a security net for yourself, which creates a financial well-being, which also then gives you peace of mind, which then also gives you happiness, right? You can't, it's hard to have happiness when like you're constantly stressed about money, when you wake up and there's like a tightness. So the other thing about money is saved money. And I use the word saved because it's not just money, but saved money creates more time. With money, you can pay someone to do something you don't want to do, right? It creates it could create a more enjoyable life for you. So what does all of this mean? How do we improve our relationship? So we're going to talk about a really practical 4-step method that I like to talk about, and I use with my clients. So there's 4 things. There's awareness, there's the goal setting, there's planning, and then there's taking action. And I'm going to pause and would love to hear from whoever kind of wants to chat. What comes up for you as you're hearing some of this? We're good? Nothing? No thoughts? Okay. I also wanted to let you know, I don't think I let you know, there should be a worksheet attached to this. So it's got a bunch of questions. Everybody has it. Okay. So you can use that during our session. You can use it after our session. It's like a little takeaway for everybody to really kind of start thinking through and uncovering some kind of awareness for yourself around what is important to you, how you want to use money, and all of that. So we'll dive into awareness. I really think this is kind of one of the biggest pieces. I'm going to say that about all of them, but I really think this is the biggest piece. And there's 2 components of awareness. There is the awareness of your actual spend, and then there's the awareness of your beliefs and emotions around your money. So what I have found is that most people spend their life in auto mode, right? Kind of very, very little awareness, little intentional kind of behavior or actions, right? So when you're in auto mode, you're you just kind of keep going, right? You've got everything on your calendar. It's the same thing every day. And that's not to judge by any means, because a lot of people do it. Everybody does it. It's just more kind of like, right, like stopping and thinking, like, are you in auto mode, right? So, and when you're in auto mode, what typically happens is you're usually like following what you've been told, following what you see, following what you heard, and all of these things lead to kind of creating your actions and creating your life. And all of this stems from your beliefs about money, right? Your actions are going to be based on your beliefs about money. So what I love about the concept of awareness is like giving yourself time to really kind of pause and take time for reflection, right? When we're constantly in the I'm so busy zone, you really don't get a chance to just kind of pause and be like, what would actually make me happy, right? Like how often do we pause and be like, am I happy doing what I'm doing? I feel like those things typically come up during people's kind of like midlife crises, right? Where they've like lived like 40 years or 50 years. And then they're like, am I even like happy, like doing all of this? And I only say that because like, that's what happened to me. And as I kind of started talking about it, I met a lot of people in a very similar boat. So I think it's really important to kind of like pause and take time for reflection. So that would be one of the kind of exercises. I think that's on the sheet. See, that's one of like the questions that I have on the sheet that I think that would be really beneficial. Like, what brings you happiness, right? Like what, like, and for a lot of people, it's usually associated with their values. And then there's also two types of happiness. There's kind of like the immediate gratification happiness, which is like kind of quick hits of dopamine, which is sometimes, you know, kind of people use that to kind of cover up maybe some deeper unhappiness. And then there's like the lasting, joyful, deeper happiness. And ideally, you know, you want lasting, joyful, deeper happiness. So like the first question that I would ask for you, that I would ask you guys to ask yourself is like, what brings you happiness, right? And then, yes, sorry. And then, and it's an opportunity to get really, really honest with yourself. So, you know, what, if you're really honest with yourself, that's where like changes can come from. One of the things that I noticed from another example is when my client said to me that, you know, her money actually was a reflection of like her relationship, the complexity of her relationship with her partner. And I don't remember who said that, I'm sorry, but they, that like that it relates to like all of, I think it was Sylvia, that like money shows you how it relates to like all other areas of your life. So that was like something very, very kind of glaring for her. And another time, someone was saying how they recognized how in all of their relationships, they've been the saver and their partner was the spender. And then they went on to recognize like, wait a minute, that's like the relationship that my parents had, right? So people kind of fall into these like patterns without really kind of acknowledging, understanding all of that. And then the next part of awareness is really understanding where is your money going? And this is an exercise. I don't have this listed as an exercise on the worksheet, but it's a very, very useful exercise for you to understand. Like, you know, I often also hear like, oh my God, I get paid, I make a lot of money or whatever, but at the end of the month, like, I don't know where it all went. Excuse me, right? So again, part of that is the awareness component. Like there are a lot of free resources if you go on Google and just type in like a budget worksheet. And I definitely recommend doing something like this. And Liana, I don't know if you've got any of that in your resources. Yeah. And really like spend some time. I recommend looking at like the last 3 months because that gives you a really kind of solid idea of like what your average spend is. But if you can at least look at like the last month and understand like where's your money going. A couple of things. So, you know, the US is really mostly like credit card based. And I feel like in Europe, it's mostly cash based. And stop me if that's not true. But I also think like it's a little bit harder to keep track of your cash if it's not, you know, kind of something that you can kind of go to and easily see. So if that's the case, what I recommend is either keeping like a little bit of a notebook, a small notebook with you, or even on your like phone, like the notes function, and to see kind of like, where is your money going while you're doing this exercise? So, right, like, so from a happiness perspective, it's like the first part is awareness, kind of where are you, to understand kind of like where you want to go. So I'm going to pause here. I've got 3 other sections, but I'm talking a lot. And I would love to hear from you. Like, what brings you happiness? Do you know, or do you feel like you have to kind of like really pause and think about it? I don't want to call on anybody. That's not my jam, but I'm hopeful someone can share.
I can share.
Oh, great. Thank you, Malin.
Spending time with my family and friends, being outside.
Okay.
Traveling brings me a lot of happiness, so I put a lot of money in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think those are the main things.
That's beautiful.
Pretty simple things.
Yeah. And I love that. It's simple, yet it requires money, right? Like traveling requires money, making sure your family is safe and healthy and eats really good, delicious, beautiful food, right? Nutritious food. All of that stuff requires money. So if you're feeling like, you're not happy with the kind of like where your life is, understanding kind of what your values are and kind of where you want it to be is like the initial kind of part of that. Excuse me. Okay. So the next piece, so takeaways from this section, I just want to be very clear that like there are things that you can do in terms of takeaways. One is get an understanding of like where your monthly dollars are flowing. If it feels like it's kind of all over the place, it's a really I don't want to say it's a simple exercise. It's not always necessarily easy, right? Because like to do something new, you're always like, oh, this is so hard. So that's one. And two, kind of like when you do the exercise, like see what comes up for you. Are you surprised? Just like notice kind of like what's happening, right? Because then that's where the awareness of like the beliefs, the emotions, start kind of coming in. So I would take note of both of those things, the actual like dollars, and then the actual kind of like emotions and thoughts. And if anything feels good, if anything feels funky, any of that. The other thing to take note is like, what is your money management process right now, right? Some people are like, yeah, I really don't have one. If bills come up, I'll just pay it. But that's a process, right? Like, are you happy with your process? Like, is it easy for you? So, next, goal setting. So we spent a lot of time on this too. The thing about goal setting, I don't really love to use the word goal because it feels like so formal. Also, like I like to use the word like dreams, right? What are your dreams? And this ties back to like living intentionally and getting off auto mode, right? Which also ties back to like awareness and happiness. Like, are you living the life that you want? And with goal setting, you do have an opportunity to create those goals for yourself. They can be monetary goals, right? In order to kind of like create a safety net for yourself, an emergency fund, poop fund, like whatever you want to kind of call it. It could be, goals to stop working or work less, or to take 3 months off and travel, or, your goal could be, I want to eat only like organic food. I want to have somebody like cook for me, right? Like it could be a variety of different things. But it's important to understand what that is. Because again, going back to the whole concept of auto mode, if you're just kind of like going, then you're not doing things that make you happy. You're not living a life that necessarily, or you could be, but if you're not happy, then you're probably not living a life kind of like with intention. So the awareness piece, it gives you the clarity on where you are now, right? Back to the Google Maps. The clarity then kind of paves the road to decide that you want something else. You want something different. You want a goal, right? And then the clarity also gives you the opportunity to make different choices, right? Which goes back to kind of like awareness and mindset and current habits. So once you are aware, once you know something else, well, now you have the opportunity to make different choices. And I think the beautiful part about all of this with like is it's very empowering, right? It's all in your own control. You get to choose how you want to spend your money. You get to choose what kind of goal you want. You get to choose, like, you know, your steps in life. So the thing that I would kind of like caution against is, you know, sometimes people get really caught up in like setting like perfect goals, and there's like, they end up kind of like spinning, right? And what I would say is, you know, choose something, kind of like throw a whatever those things in the sand and kind of start moving, because then you also kind of need to start creating action, because if you just kind of like sit and spin, you're still not really in creating a goal. The other thing, you know, don't use your goals against you. I feel like we do that a lot. We create a goal and then we like beat ourselves up. We didn't do it, or we didn't do it right, right? Like nothing is going to be perfect. So just kind of like pick something and go. I think I heard somebody say something. No.
It's been pretty nice. Is there any room in there to pop something else in?
I think my preference would be to leave it.
I don't know if you can mute.
Something about it to me.
Okay.
Yeah, I like the vine with it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, this is cornwall for me. So.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So yeah, so don't use your goals against yourself. The other thing around goals is they don't have to be super long term. They can be short-term goals, anything kind of like a couple of years. They can be longer term goals, or medium. I like to kind of break goals up into kind of short-term, medium, and like longer term. And then that way you can also like align your money habits, right? And kind of figuring out how to save for those goals, how to kind of like do that with like the short, medium, and the long term. So not everything has to be about like retirement, or not everything has to be about, you know, kind of like the next vacation, right? Like I think it's really important to kind of like have different types of goals. And you know, another thing I want to say, if this is new to you, then your brain hasn't like typically done these types of exercises before, right? So it's very common for your brain to default to like, I don't know, right? Like, and I know this because that's something that like has happened with me when I was kind of like on my path where I just feel like I was kind of like on auto mode. When it came time to kind of like really intentionally thinking about something, a goal for myself and like what I want to do, I would immediately default to like, I don't know, right? But if you keep asking yourself, you keep digging, you know, your brain is going to kind of start looking, right? And a good way to think about that is like, what interests you? What are you curious about? What would you love to experience? You know, one of my clients, she said her goal was to travel with her son. And I remember she like kind of like started crying. So if you're thinking about like your goals, something that like feels really deep for you, and you start crying, then you're probably onto something. That's probably something that's like something very passionate and very important to you. And I think that's a really great thing to kind of make as your goal. And also notice kind of as you're thinking about goals, notice any kind of other feelings, like are you getting any kind of like internal pushback, any kind of anger? Just kind of like notice what's coming up for you, but really from a place of like curiosity instead of judgment, right? We have these tendencies to just like right away judge ourselves. So just really kind of be curious and more open to that. I'm going to pause again. And any goals that come up for anybody that they've been thinking about or want to share? I think that's on the worksheet too. So it's not something that you have to know right now. But I would love to hear from you if something comes up for you. Nope. No goals? No, like early retirement? Anything?
I have a few short-term goals.
Yes, please share.
So I'm located in Spain, but recently my husband got a green card to go to the US. So we'll be moving back to the United States. So that move in itself is going to be very expensive. Just relocating. And then getting reestablished. I mean, my family is there, but getting reestablished there. So I have some savings, but I also just got laid off on Friday. So I'm like, not in an awesome position to be doing something that I thought was going to be really stable. So that's a very short, like next 2 to 3 months goal is just like getting there and getting established. So it's, I don't know if that would start some conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a perfect short-term goal. And I think it's really important, like what you brought up. First of all, thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate it. And I feel like a lot of us can like relate, right? Like the movement to other countries, like a lot of us are expats for some place or another. So I feel like a lot of us have experienced something very similar. You kind of, there is a significant cost to moving internationally, right? So it's really important to kind of like plan for something that ahead of time if you can, right? And create some type of safety net, right? But I think what I love is that, you know, you're aware of it, it's on your mind. So now as you're kind of like making decisions, this is something that kind of like, you know, is part of like the decision making, right? So that like is what you're kind of like focusing on. Yeah. And when's this move happening? Do you know?
In like a month and a half, probably.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because they don't give you much time. The
Okay.
US.
Okay.
So, but and I'll just share that short-term goal turned into a medium-term goal because I'm now taking a course on paralegal for immigration. So it
That's awesome.
kind of helped me like get into something else that I'm interested in helping other people with.
That's very cool. Do you mind if I ask, how did that kind of like, how did that one goal turn into the other? Like, how did that come to you?
Going through the process for my husband getting his green card cost thousands of dollars of my savings and his, and because we had to use lawyers, and one of the lawyers that I worked for, she was great, and she was like, you know, you're as a client, you're really great at like getting me the paperwork I need. So I think you should maybe consider getting into this as a profession if it's something that you're interested in. So it's been on the back burner, but now that because of circumstances, it's like on the very front burner. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun.
That's very cool. Like, it's an exciting new opportunity. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing, Catherine. I really appreciate it. Anybody else? Okay. I got it. Not a lot of talkers. That's cool. Okay. So the next section is planning. As I have in my notes, crucial step. They're all crucial steps. Crucial step to achieving money and your happiness goals. So kind of, you know, what Catherine says about like kind of planning, right? The thing about planning is you are directing the course of your life versus letting external factors direct your course, right? So again, you are planning to achieve your like happiness goals. This is like this is like step 3 of like all the really important pieces of like connecting like, you know, your money and like your happiness goals. So you know, there's a variety of different things to kind of like plan around. So there is the planning, there's an actual planning of like, how do you save up for something, right? So like you're looking at your monies, you either need to figure out like, are you going to create additional income? Are you going to cut some expenses? Because not everything is always about cutting expenses. Sometimes you do need to create some additional income. And there's like the planning around like, okay, well then how am I going to save on a monthly basis, right? There's also planning around if people are having a hard time saving. For example, I come across like the concept of like emotional spending a lot, right? People like they're just emotionally spending in order to make themselves feel better. And then what happens is they feel like their money is kind of like slipping through and they can never get to a place where they can save enough to either grow their emergency fund, grow their any of like their goal funds, and then ultimately start investing. So there is such a thing as planning for emotional spending as well, or planning to kind of like planning to not emotionally spend. So that is just, that's like that's just an example of like different types of plans. So there's plans around like, you know, achieving a certain money goal. There's also plans on how do you stop maybe like spending on a certain thing. Like one of the common things that I come across is like everybody, a lot of people that I work with, like they have really high Amazon purchases, right? They're just like every month it's like, oh my God, I'm like spending again on Amazon, right? So kind of creating a plan for yourself around like, well, how do you, if you know that this is like a pain point for you, if you know that this is kind of like a triggering thing for you, then how do you get around it, right? You, one option, like, right, like, so creating a plan in terms of like looking at your spending, knowing, you know, this is also where the awareness piece comes in of like recognizing kind of like your own signs of like when things are about to kind of like go maybe down a path that you don't want it to, right? So either this emotional spending or like too much on Amazon. So part of it is also creating a plan around like the awareness of it, and then also creating a plan to have different types of actions. So if you find yourself in that place, you know, you can choose to create a different action, but it's really hard to do that right in the moment. Hence, like the planning piece comes into play, right? Thinking about it ahead of time, making sure that like, you know, that this happens to you. So thinking about a way to approach the situation a little bit differently. And so kind of back to my original point, like the point is to prepare ahead of the actual moment so that you've pre-made the decision ahead of time. So things are not kind of getting off track for you in the moment. There's a question. Yeah. So the emotional spending, any more comments on that? For sure. So that's typically the types of things that we talk about is, you know, emotional spending. It's not like it just, what do I want to say about this? You know, your own habits, right? You generally, if you pause, and again, awareness, right? If you pause and you know, there are usually certain things that kind of have you, kind of either itching or kind of like wanting to do something, right? That you would consider emotional spending. You're either trying to maybe like avoid something, or you're trying to make yourself feel better about something. There's like a variety of different things that can be related to emotional spending. So a lot of that is like this, it goes back to kind of like awareness. So one, recognizing that it happens, right? Two, getting to a place of like identifying when it happens, right? Because you have to recognize, like, you have to start recognizing like your symptoms like ahead of time. So this is not, and I just want to preface, this is not something that happens overnight. This is things that happen with like constant awareness. Like you recognize that you're, you know, initially like the stages usually are, you know, it happens, right? And you want to make a change. So now that you know it happens, what usually ends up happening is like, you'll get to a place where you're going to recognize like, oh man, I just did that. Right. And then you're slowly going to get to a place where, because you're so aware, you're going to recognize that you're maybe like in it. And you're like, oh wait, I recognize this. I'm in it. It hasn't passed yet. So you recognize it, right? And then you can choose to make a different decision. And then it's going to get to a place where you're going to start recognizing like the symptoms, the feelings, the things that are like kind of coming up before the actual spending happens, right? And that's what I talk about, what I mean by kind of creating a plan is like, you do need to like devote some time and get some awareness of it. And it could be, you know, in order to create awareness for yourself, you could like journal around that every day, around kind of like what's my emotional spending, right? So that it's top of mind, so that when it happens, you're like, oh, I just did that. Until slowly you get to a place where you can back up and then you can kind of change the course, decide that you want to do something else ahead of time. And like, so that you don't kind of go down that path. Did I answer that? Did I answer your question? Does that help? Getting any feedback? Okay, cool. Great. Thank you. So yes, any other thoughts, questions on that? I get a lot of questions around the emotional spending. Okay. So in terms of planning, one of the things that I generally recommend to do is, again, it takes a variety of different forms. If the planning is like you want to go do this paralegal course. Sorry, Catherine, I think I butchered it. I don't remember if it was paralegal, but something kind of around like, you know, that course, right? So what's kind of your path for that, right? Like you need some time to like create the plan and create it and get to a place where it's like at a task level, so things can be kind of really easy to kind of start implementing and changing. One of the things that I like to do when I plan is to block some time, like uninterrupted time. I think an hour is appropriate. Sometimes that's really hard for people, so start with 30 minutes, and really just like sit and think through what it is that you are looking to plan. Are you looking to plan to change like how you're emotionally spending, right? So then initially it's like, well, I have to first recognize when I'm in it, right? Are you looking to do a new course? Then like sit down and think through, well, what are the different steps that I need to do in order to kind of like go through this course? And then I also recommend calendarizing that. Is it a plan to cut your Amazon spending, right? Well, then, you know, like, well, I want to look at my Amazon expenses for the past 3 months or whatever. I'm going to figure out what they are. I want to carry a notebook with me so that like, as I'm spending, like I write it down, right? You have to create some kind of plan for yourself so that you can get from point A to point B. And then in that plan, include the things that you are going to make adjustments to. And I'm going to pause. We're about 10 minutes away. My last segment is much faster. Any questions or anything? Okay. So, last segment is the actual action, right? Like actually doing it, actually making a decision, taking a different action, doing the things in your calendar, doing what you've planned for yourself. And this is usually really, really hard for people. And the reason it's really hard for people is because it's a new muscle, right? And when you're working out, when you're like working your biceps for the first time, like you can only pick up like a pound. Well, I can only pick up a pound. Maybe some people are much stronger. Like you can only like pick up a pound, right? And as you get the right form and you start getting the right repetitions, right? And then you realize like, oh, I can do more. I can do more. The same thing with the action piece. Like initially, like it's really, really hard. Your brain's not used to it. It's like fighting you. It's resisting you. You're like, I don't want to do it, right? But like once you kind of get past that like hurdle, you start creating momentum for yourself. You start building trust in yourself that like you know that you can do the things that you say that you're going to do, right? And then that gets you on that path to happiness in the sense of like it gets you to the goal that you've created for yourself, right? Just like by actually doing what you say you are going to do. I preface all of this, you know, with like, you know, we're all humans. We're not robots. We're going to have hard days. We're going to have easy days. Life is absolutely going to be thrown at you. Kids will be sick. Something is going to happen. That is inevitability. So it's really important to be kind to yourself on this journey, on any kind of like new journey, especially a financial new journey. Don't beat yourself up. Treat yourself like you would treat your best friend. And, you know, with the same accountability, right? Like, don't just like let it go. It's like, you're also accountable to yourself. Right. So I just wanted to kind of like, end on that note, like be compassionate to yourself. It's a journey, right? The journey from like where you are to where you want to be, right? Where you are right now and where you want to be is kind of happier, different level of happiness, all that stuff. Like you can use those kind of 4 components to get to that end place. So that's what I've got for you today. Any questions, thoughts, comments? No, we're good. Okay. I will just so everybody knows, I will shoot you all an email. Oh, Oh, good. I'm so glad. And please use the worksheet. Like that's you know, it's going to encourage you to kind of like move the juices in your head and kind of hopefully get you like think a little bit differently. So thank you, Amy. I will be emailing all of you to just ask for some feedback. Would love to hear your takeaways. Doesn't have to be, you know, pages and pages. Any kind of takeaways would be great. And also as a bonus, I am offering 50% off my coaching program if you want to sign up within the next 30 days. That's all. Thank you all. Thank you, Leona, so much for having me. It was really great to meet everybody. I love talking about this. So it's like, ask me any questions and I'll just like go on and on, obviously.
Thank you so much. It was very interesting.
You're so welcome.
Well, we're not leaving yet. We're not leaving. Thank you so much, Julia. I think it was very, very interesting. And I think we all learned a lot. I will make some comments from, if you allow me, and I'll ask some questions as well.
Yes,
I kept for the last. So the first stage, awareness. Think personally one of the positives of the awareness is that we usually underestimate how bad are our finances. Now, I hear so many negative things about women, from women about finances.
Yeah.
And but our mind is kind of wired not to feel bad in lots of situations. And for me personally, I mean, I have my finances very much in order, but I always have still this kind of a fear that I will see there something horrible, no, and that I was misbehaving or something. So for me, actually, one of the points of awareness is to actually to feel good about myself. No, so there it's a funny thing, but so I would say that especially people who kind of say no that I'm really bad about finance, my finance is a mess, I'm spending too much. Well, once you start monitoring, it's actually probably not as bad as what you are drawing yourself. If we go into details of awareness, I see lots of people who go very ambitiously to, let's say, do the whole budget and fail greatly because it's a huge task. No, so, and especially if you are family, I think if you're a single person, it's kind of manageable. But if you're a family, if you're talking about different bank accounts, different, what we have here in Europe, actually, we have a debit card and a credit card and a little bit of cash, no? And debit card is kind of, it takes from your account immediately. Credit card, it takes it on another moment, but it makes your bank statements a mess.
Yeah.
So it's really, and of course you have Amazon. So I recommend to take actually 1 year it takes you 1 year to really monitor seriously your spending as a family. Also our spending is kind of seasonal, no, and so once a month is not. So give yourself time. Don't get an ambition that I will monitor all my spending from today to from all the way, because it will not work. You'll get disappointed. So maybe, I don't know, maybe only start with monitoring, I don't know, what you think you're spending the most on. If it's clothes, just monitor clothes, no, or something. But yeah, it's a really long process. And the same,
I love that
think,
recommendation, like, because it takes it into like, it makes it bite size, right? It doesn't overwhelm you. So like, I absolutely love that. Yeah.
No, because I think it's very hard to do it, and I see so many people fail. No, And the same with goal settings. No, no, and you said no. I mean, it doesn't have to be a huge goal. Yeah, we put a big goal. I usually see that, people say I will start investing tomorrow. Yeah, no, it takes time. No, so if your goal is too ambitious, you are quicker to fail, no, and get disappointed. If you have I think it's good to have ambitious goals. No, and I think we also have like American dream and European reality.
Yeah,
We have
yeah.
different cultures here. No, but yeah, but also have realistic goals. No, so like so that's important. In Yeah, planning is essential. No, and I think we nowadays everybody is overwhelmed. No, one thing everybody says, I'm too busy, I'm overwhelmed. No, I don't know where to start. Block time in your calendar. No,
Yes.
block time in your calendar. And people who attended my events before, they know my advice. 15 minutes of wealth management a week in your calendar. No, for the rest of your life, you have a calendar event, wealth management, 15 minutes a week. And so then your small to-do things you also put in that calendar. No, so you need to call to the bank. It's for this week, for the next week, in 3 weeks, but it's in your calendar. Yeah, and so that was a little bit of wisdom from my side, if I'm allowed.
Of course. Thank you.
And with the questions, so with the question, I would say, can you maybe share some story, of which surprised you?
A story that surprised me in what sense?
Your client story, a transformation story,
Oh,
or something,
sure.
no?
Oh, absolutely. Oh my God. Yeah, I love my client stories. So let me think. Yeah, so my one client that recently just renewed with me, she came to me. I remember our first meeting, and you could just feel her energy, and she was miserable, and she was sad, and she was in such a bad place. And she's like, I have so much debt. I don't know how to make my expenses align with my income. I mean, she was just in such a really, really difficult place emotionally, right? Most of the times, like the clients come when like it starts being a serious emotional weight. So then they need to figure out how to fix it. So we went from, so that was, and throughout our sessions, I always monitor like facial expressions, if anybody like the smiles, and like not only like the actual progress, but also like the emotional kind of component of the money changes. So within like the first 2-3 sessions, she was just like sad, always kind of like in a bad place. And by session 5 or 6, she started telling me things like, what did she say to me? She's like, I feel like saving money is like the biggest form of self-care. So she was able to figure out a way. She found like a new opportunity to consolidate. She had a lot of debt. So consolidate all of her debt with a much lower percentage. So not only did she have like 10, instead of like having 10 people to kind of pay, she now had one payment. The interest was significantly lower. So she saved herself, I remember the exact amount, but she saved herself, like if you put all the interest out, like she ended up saving herself like $10,000 over the course of like 10 years. Right. And then we also found other ways to increase like income opportunities. Like she started a different job. She started, kind of looking at income in a much different way. So now we're on round 2 of our journey, and she's also an entrepreneur, so her money fluctuates. So one of the things that we are now focusing on is like when she's got like the really high season, how does she create a system for herself so that everything stays really level and she doesn't experience the dips, and she doesn't worry about where she's getting money for like Christmas and like all of those gifts. So I would say that has been one of my favorite client success stories. So not only is she like managing her debt, she's got a really small payment, which saved her monthly by changing this. It saved her $1,200 a month, which is like massive. It's like finding $1,200. So we've just had an amazing like journey together. And like this summer's coming up, and she's got her like several businesses, and now like her income growth is going to be significantly higher. And we'll be able to, she's created kind of like different goals for herself. So traveling with her son was one of those goals. She's created an emergency fund goal for herself, and she's never been able to save money before. She's never been able to hold money, save it intentionally. And now she's seeing her money grow, she's saving it, and it's like a different person. It's just really, it's so beautiful to see. It like makes my heart warm. So yeah. Thank you for asking.
Thank you, Julia. I think, yeah, I think we are very, very fortunate now to see now that our work can help people now and help them, yeah, in very different ways. So
yes, it's very rewarding. Yeah.
Yes. So that's good. Well, I think it's good we will be on time today, so we will not go longer. I think thank everyone for coming and taking time, and I hope you found it interesting and motivational. And I really thank Julia for sharing her advice with us and her worksheet, and yeah, so thank you so much. I definitely will go back reflecting again. I love reflecting. My goal always is to spend more time with my family and to travel more. So and one thing what we do, let's say money wise for that. So in my budget, there is a separate part for vacation. No, so it's so, and we have a yearly goal, and it's monitored as a yearly goal. So and I find it helpful. No, because sometimes we say that we love traveling, but then we never find time to do it, no? Or we will say that we want to spend more time with kids, but we don't do it, no? So well, I really make sure I do this, no, and let's say put money in that direction as well, no? So it's important. Well, thank you so much, everyone. I don't have anything planned actually. Now it's June, and I think the weather is good, and everybody starts really enjoying outdoors. So I don't really have many things planned. Maybe I'll do end of the month or beginning of July kind of empowering call where we can kind of set up our goals, but I'll see if there is a demand for that. So I'm not sure, and if not, for sure in September there will be plenty of stuff, and I will have more time to write over the summer. So you will be reading me. And thank you very much, Julia. Thank you. Have a nice evening, everyone. And well, see you somewhere soon.
Okay.
Bye. Thank you so much.